Well, hello and welcome to our live stream today. Today, we're going to be continuing our conversation with regards to mental health. A little over 2 months ago, we started looking at mental health and taking some of the practical steps, whether it's taking notes, putting them down, describing what we're feeling, whether it's asking questions. Well, we left off our last live stream looking at a couple of things that we would come back and have a look at. And one of the last things that our guest spoke about was the aspect of saying we are not broken. Who was that guy? Well, let's find out. And welcome to the live stream, Jonam.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Absolutely wonderful to have you back. Okay, so you finished off last time looking at the aspects of you're not broken.
No, we're not.
How come?
Because we weren't born this way, right? We learned it. So any negative belief we have, any internal dialogue that's getting us down, any inner bully that's treating us badly, we weren't born with that. We picked it up along the way, like treading in dog muck on the street, right? The shoe didn't come with that attached. It got put on there later. You can clean it out, just sometimes it's hard work. It's kind of a vulgar example, but let's just try it, see if it fits.
Okay, cool. Now, just before you came up with that statement that we're not broken, we actually looked at a couple of questions. Removing the question why and asking what and how.
Yes.
And that's what we want to focus on majority of today. Obviously, we can go left, right, and center. But why get rid of the why and start using what and how? Let's just recap on that again.
Yeah, so to review some of that, in fact, I'll backtrack a little bit just to introduce like where I'm speaking from. So if we've not met before, the viewer watching or listening to this, so my background, I was raised in the organization, and then since leaving, I've been working as a hypnotherapist and also as a behavioral engineer and a behavioral profiling trainer. So realizing that there's a massive need in the XJW community. That's why in the past couple of years, I've pivoted to speaking about this and working with this. So that's the background in terms of where I'm speaking from. So there's the personal experience of having to work through this myself. You know, I'm on the journey too, just like you are. But also I've been lucky enough to have certain training and some experience that's helped me to develop skills that help myself and other people. So I always say there are three areas. In fact, we've got the whole religion rehab program, which focuses on these three areas of our thoughts, of our feelings, and then our relationships. So some of the advice and the points and the practical tips, most importantly, that I'll share in today's conversation, they're addressing those three different areas. And the reason to answer your question, Shane, the reason for focusing more on what and how rather than why is that they are solution-finding questions. In the same way that if you go into Google and you type in poverty, all of the answers that you'll receive will be answers about poverty and poverty conditions in the world, right? If you type in wealth or abundance or earning opportunities, then you'll get those results. Your mind is very much like that. If you put questions in, it's going to give you the answers to the question you ask. So if let's say something happens and you say, oh, why does this always happen to me? Well, what your mind is going to do is going to say, right, they want an answer to that question. I'll give it because you're horrible. Nobody likes you, because all of this stuff, and it will give you the answer to the question you've asked, even if it means kind of distorting some information to confirm the pre-existing belief. So that's why I always say if we go down this route of why, it's like this descending staircase into misery.
Yep.
When we start asking, well, what do I want and how can I get it? Then that gives you some direction. Instead of focusing on where we don't want to go, we're focusing on where we do want to go, which gives us some kind of trajectory to follow and to keep going forward. that's what helps a lot of people get through really turbulent trials and times, is when they know that they're working towards something. If we're just going through hell and there's no time limit and we don't perceive it as ending anytime, that's torture. But when we have a goal and it's like, okay, I want to improve in some area, that gives us trajectory, and it gives us that sense and the reality of getting out of that state. So that's why I said that, to backtrack on that.
Okay, no, that's cool. So let's take, for example, a subject that maybe it's not even something related to the J-dubs. Maybe it's how we're feeling with regards to the environment we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there, we're looking at ourselves and we're going, how can the what and the how help us? Regardless of our age, because I notice even some of the young ones that are out there, they're sitting on social media, they're watching all the videos from wherever media platform they've come from. How can they be helped? How can we be helped if we're struggling with it?
Well, the first thing that I'll chat about is thoughts. So how to take back control of our mind. Whether it's from the organization or from society in general, or just life, life gets people down. It's pretty tough at times. Our thoughts, our minds can get away with us, and they, that they aren't supporting us. They're a liability rather than an asset. The ideal is to change our negative thoughts into positive thoughts, to transmute them. That's the ideal, and that's the goal, and that is something that you can achieve. But that takes time. That's a bit like the metaphor of, a ship that's kind of gone off course. Well, it's going to take some time to turn back. That's what my judicial committee told me. So I'm stealing their metaphor for my prostate one. But it's a good metaphor, and it applies in this case. So there are things that we can do to retrain our thoughts, because, like I say, we aren't broken. We were just trained badly. So we need to retrain ourselves, like training a new habit. I'll talk about how you can do that in just a moment. But before we can do that, you can find some relief by changing your relationship to your thoughts. And I'll explain what I mean. So in 1938, War of the Worlds was aired on the radio.
That was a great show.
It was great. I love the story. But I love the story around it. How it was aired on the radio, and people who came in kind of halfway through and didn't get the announcement at the beginning saying, this is just a fictional show. They were like, we're being invaded by aliens, and the world went nuts. Certainly America went nuts, which is pretty hilarious.
Yep.
But if you think, let's rewind the clock, and let's say we're in 1938, and I'm driving over to you. I'm going to pick you up. We'll go bowling or whatever people in America do. I think that's the thing. And we on the way over there, I hear the beginning of the show. I'm like, oh, this sounds cool. So pick you up, you get in the car, driving along, and then you start hearing this stuff on the radio. It sounds like news presenters talking about freaking alien ships and abductions and all this kind of stuff. You would be freaking out. And yet I'd be sitting there just happy as Larry.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, we're sitting next to each other, we're sharing the same space, we're breathing the same air, we're listening to the exact same sounds and the exact same information. But my relationship to it is different to what your relationship to it is, because I know that it's fiction. And as soon as, let's say you freak out a little bit too much and I'm like, look, it's just a fictional show. There was an announcement at the beginning. You calm down. Then you realize, oh, okay, I don't need to take that seriously. We can anticipate the fact that our mind and our thoughts will be rebelling against us. They will be trying to pull us back into those old habits while we retrain the new habits. That's just something that we can count on. There will be negative internal dialogue. There will be limiting beliefs, and there will be those those mental and behavioral loops that aren't helping us. When you realize that, though, and you become aware of those thoughts,
Yep.
then you have the choice to say, well, this is just the cult thing. This isn't me. I don't believe this. I don't think this. That's a fictional thing. That was a made up construct that was put in there by the cult. But in the same way that War of the Worlds was a fiction, that's a fiction too. That was just their rules, their belief systems. I don't have to pay attention to that thought. And that applies to religious programming. It also applies to just negative thoughts about ourselves. If you hear it, you can hear it as, look, that's just my inner wounded version of me that hasn't healed yet and is in the process of healing. I don't have to let that part of me take control.
So if we're finding that it is taking control, how will the how and what questions help us?
So the what is kind of is simple in this case, in terms of you want to stop the old negative thoughts and transmute them into something new. You can get specific in that, but the first thing to do is to stop the old. You need to ground the negative out. One of the exercises that I teach in the 12-week program is to ask yourself the question, do I accept this or do I reject it? As soon as you become aware of a thought, then you're the observer of the thought rather than the victim of it, right? If you're observing something, you're somewhat removed from it, even if it's only a little bit, rather than just being someone totally unconscious and running the old pattern. So you've got some awareness, and as soon as you have that, you can then start to ask more questions. It's like pulling on a thread, and just soon enough you have enough to knit a whole sweater with. So asking yourself, do I accept this thought or do I reject it? And then if you can, saying out loud, I reject that thought. I reject, deny, and banish that thought. You can make it dramatic if you like. I disown that thought. That's not me. Those types of decisions where you're exercising your will over your own mind, even in a small way, and that thought might come back. It probably will. But then if you catch it again, it's like, oh, no, you go out. Don't know if you've ever tried to sneak into a nightclub.
Nope, never done that.
Well, anyone who has, it's, the bouncers are a pain in the ass.
Oh, really?
I've not done this for about 10 years, but they, it's like you try to kind of sneak in and they're like, no, not you. And then if you kind of weasel your way in through a back door, they'll come through look through the crowd, and they come in and spot you and turf you out again. It's the mind can work the same way, and that's normal. And that's okay. So going through choosing, look, this thing doesn't belong, out. And then continually building that control, eventually you have confidence that you're able to do this. So that's a very small thing, right? We're not talking about committing to an hour of meditation and writing 5 pages of a gratitude journal. It's like you're just starting small with a bite-sized piece. If you notice a thought that isn't helping you, then ask yourself, do I accept this or reject it?
Okay. Just going back a minute, you said say it out loud.
Yeah.
Why?
When we have an external experience, that makes it more memorable. It actually gives us a reference point in our memories. We have thousands, tens of thousands of thoughts every day, which we just forget. The more solid we can make an experience, the more memorable it becomes. And also the more it takes it out of the more instinctive parts of the brain, the more subconscious parts, and it brings it into the more conscious, rational parts. In terms of biology, our feelings and our emotions and our survival instincts are towards the back of the brain, which is largely, well, almost totally governed by your subconscious mind. Speech is up here at the in the neocortex, which is the human bit, and so in order to translate a feeling into words, you're changing the brain location, and along the way it loses some of its emotional charge.
Right.
And if you want some reference material for that, check out Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I think it's in the section on labeling, which is pretty fascinating.
Yep. If we struggle with that sort of thing, you talk about not writing down 5 pages of journaling, not sitting there for an hour meditating.
I mean, do that by all means, but you don't have to. Start.
Yeah, I was just thinking I couldn't actually write 5 pages or sit there meditating for an hour. I don't think I've ever done that. But if we struggle with just getting the words out of here, out of this little hole, what's one way we can do that doesn't freak us out?
So the next thing to think about is the emotions, right? Sometimes our emotions can be so much deeper and more complex than thoughts. And trying to rationalize them, trying to verbalize them can be difficult. One of the reasons is that the organization taught us to shun our feelings, right? Deaden your body members, pummel your body, lead it as a slave, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. We were taught to shun ourselves, and so that kind of broke this relationship. And the organization, much like the world in general, if we're being honest, is a lot more concerned with what you are rather than who you are. And that attitude rubbed off on a lot of us, where we look at ourselves and say, well, I've not achieved this, I've not done that, and I'm bad in all these different ways, and we're judging ourselves based on what we are, while we totally ignore who we are and how how we feel, how we exist as an emotional being, rather than just a collection of behaviors. So another thing you can do is to work on getting out of this dissociated state and even out of the rational mind, and go inquiring into the heart, into the emotions. So these 2 things I've just mentioned, they're not they don't cancel each other out. It just depends on the situation which is going to be the most helpful to you. So sometimes rationalizing it, saying it, writing it down, taking inventory, taking stock, and saying, I reject that thought, that will work. Like, sometimes that's the right thing to do. Other times it might be quite a complex thing. It might be quite a deep-rooted thing, in which case, rather than thinking, well, how does society or how does my peer group think I should respond to this? You see Facebook posts sometimes like, how should I feel about such and such? So what? How do you feel? That's the answer. Stop asking me, go inside. And like, that will tell you what you feel. So rather than the group awareness, and rather than trying to overanalyze it, it's like we'll kind of retreat into this little cupboard up here in our brains sometimes. It's like, get out of there and feel into it. In terms of a practical thing you can do, if you have the chance, just kind of sit there. Putting your hands over your heart is good, because what it does, it draws your attention to that area. And if you can, like, imagine breathing into your heart and kind of bringing your awareness, rather than in this quite high high frequency, high intensity rational thought, and just say, my only job for the next 10 seconds is to feel into what I'm feeling. And so then, if that's difficult, start with physical sensations. So what am I feeling physically? Tightness in my abdomen, shortness of breath, clenching in my hands, whatever it is. Just pay attention to your body, because that's the That's the instrument that your subconscious mind uses to speak to you. It doesn't speak to us in words. We don't have a little Jiminy Cricket sitting there piping words into our brain. Our mind speaks to us through our feelings.
Yep.
A friend of mine says words are the language of the mind, and feelings are the language of the soul. And the feelings, literal physical feelings, are your starting point to that. So pay attention first. What am I feeling physically? And then how does that feel emotionally? So this might be like, oh, I feel sad, or I feel anxious, or I feel stressed. Whatever it is, just, it doesn't have to be even the right answer. Just give it some kind of form and see, well, how am I actually feeling? And then as you feel into that, as you lean into it in a measured way like this, then pay attention to the thoughts that come up. From there, what you do, you've begun to create like a profile for that emotional state. So sometimes we can just be in this wordlessly negative state where it's like, oh, I just feel crappy, like nothing's going my way, but we don't have a clear label for that. We don't have it sort of tagged up and neatly understood. Just because words are metaphors for the things they represent, right? So feelings are much richer and much deeper than a word can convey. So sometimes it's a bit of a patchwork job. So by giving yourself the space to just sit with yourself, say, how am I feeling physically? How does that reflect emotionally? Is there any kind of tinge to it? Is there any flavor to it, so to speak? And then what thoughts are going along with that? What stories am I telling myself about this feeling? Or what stories does this feeling remind me of?
Okay.
When you have those things tagged up, so to speak, if you want to, then quite a therapeutic thing to do is to ask yourself, when did that feeling begin? More specifically, when did I learn that feeling? Because there was a point in your life where you had not felt that before, and then that changed. So, and this is the essence of what they call timeline therapy. You find the initial sensitizing events, they call it, that impact points where before that time, this thing wasn't the case. And then after that time, it was the case. A decision was made, a feeling was felt. When you can review that and you're doing it, this is handy to do on paper or do it with a coach or with a therapist. That then helps you to take that memory, that impact point, and change your relationship to it again. Like with the War of the Worlds thing, that experience at the time, let's say someone treated us badly, made us feel down on ourselves. At the time, that felt true. At the time, that felt real. And if our parents, who were to all intents and purposes gods, especially when we were small children, if they told us something, well, they have power over our food, survival, everything. If they said something or did something that negatively impacted us, then our mind was like, well, this is just the truth. This is just the way the world works. And so we internalized it. When you reverse engineer these emotional states like this, that in itself is healing. When you go back and look at it again, you're changing your relationship to that initial sensitizing event where you realize, okay, that was me as a kid listening to War of the Worlds on the radio, thinking it was the real thing.
Yeah.
And then Jonah comes along and says, oh no, don't worry, the aliens aren't really invading. That's, as a practical thing, that's something I take people through again and again and again. But you can do it for yourself. Feel into it, explore the feeling. If you have the chance, either say it out loud or write it down is helpful for this, because you can develop a mind map. And from there, you can, again, get into that driving seat of your own mind and take control.
So if we're sitting there, and is there a time limit that, we get that feeling, you're encouraging us to sit there and think about it, and we go blank.
I would say feel into it. Rather than think about it. Like the thinking comes afterwards, but first we have
Okay.
to take stock. So feel into it. That's the thing. We're very disembodied just as a culture, right? Especially in the organization, we were divorced from our bodies. And
Yep.
so letting your awareness sink into it. How does my body physically feel? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's just tune into it. How much can you be aware of? What seems to be relevant to this emotional state, and what's just kind of background noise. If your mind is going blank, then it might be that your mind isn't the thing you need to be speaking with.
Okay.
So feel into it. If the emotions aren't that clear and the waters are a bit muddy, start with physical sensation, because unless you're under extreme anesthetic or paralyzed, you can at least feel your body. So start there and see what your body's telling you.
So we might have a gut feeling.
Yeah. And the key with behavioral profiling, whether you're looking at other people or looking at yourself, is to gather information and get good
Right.
at gathering information rather than leaping to conclusions. The more data points you have, the more accurate your conclusion is going to be. So, for instance, you could read a body language article online and say, well, that thing said someone crossed their arms, which means they're closed off and they're concealing something. And so you could see someone crossing their arms, leap to that conclusion, speak to them badly, and undermine a relationship. If you spend longer and do a bit more training, a bit more research, and observe the person for longer, it's like, well, it's cold, and they're warming themselves up, but their blink rate slowed down. They're kind of nodding their head. Their breathing shifted into their abdomen, so they're feeling more comfortable. Their fingers aren't clenching on their biceps. They're kind of relaxed and happy.
Okay.
So you've got more data points to then arrive at a more accurate conclusion. That applies to other people as well as it does yourself. So just sit with yourself and be patient with it. And in terms of the timeline question of how long should it take, or is there a time limit? There's no time limit. All I would say is that if you go into if you find yourself going into a negative spiral of, again, that why question, why do I feel bad? Well, that's going to be either externally blaming or internally blaming, right? Well, because so-and-so is an absolute prat, or because I'm an absolute prat and I deserve to feel bad. Well, why am I such a prat? Well, because of this or that. Or why is that person such a prat? Well, because, they always do this kind of thing. And here's all the other reasons why I hate them. Prat's an English word. It means an idiot. But just to translate, it might be a colloquial thing. So that's an example of where asking why can send us into a spiral. When we just follow the steps and sit with it without trying to add meaning, just by noticing what's currently there, that's going to be a lot more helpful.
So can I just ask then, if we keep focusing on the why, can that add to, say, anxiety?
Yeah, it's like a feedback loop. If you've ever been on sound or dealing with microphones or bands and stuff, that high-pitched screech, right? Is where the frequency goes into the microphone, then out of the speaker, and then it just gets worse and worse. And then everyone wants to shoot the sound guy.
I had that once or twice.
Yeah. Speaking as a former band member. So yeah, absolutely. It can create a feedback cycle if we just go down and down. But again, that's where the awareness comes in. If we notice ourselves doing that, and it's like, hey, I was feeling bad, and now I'm feeling even worse. Do I accept that or reject it? Well, no, I reject that. That's not how I want today to go. And so, well, let's get a handle on this. What is this emotion I'm feeling? what label would I give it? If I had to label it as anything or a few things, how would I label it?
Yep.
Well, the physical sensations, what are the thoughts that I'm telling myself about it? And then doing that again, it extricates you from the problem.
Okay. It's handy to know, because so many of us do think, and we do spiral down. I guess most of humanity sometime in their life has done it.
Absolutely. It's human nature. And that's where the third thing I wanted to mention, the third area of relationships is important. I'm going to say something quite controversial here, but I think I'll bear with it.
You're in another country. I'm in another country. Go for it.
But I might get cancelled, Shane.
Oh, no. Never mind. Just ask how and what.
Right. So religion is a fundamental need of human beings. I'll explain what I mean by that. Not religion as we know it, but religion as in the actual root of it. The word religion stems from the word religar or religare. I'm not good at Latin. It means to bind together.
Okay, yep.
Same as, or similar to the word yoga, interestingly, which means unity or union, bringing something together. Just an interesting little language point. This idea of binding together, of people having something that brings them together, unites them, is really important to human beings. That's why we have communities. That's why we have sports clubs and interest clubs and book clubs and lodges and all these different places to find and hang out with people who share similar values and similar ideas about the world. The binding together, or that unity, that relating with other people, is a fundamental need of humans. What cults do is they hijack that need and then they pollute it. So that's also why it's so painful when we leave. We had that huge, if not a support network, it was certainly a network, right? We knew there were people there. We knew that we could go to another town or city or even another country and just walk into the Kingdom Hall and say, hey, I'm brother so-and-so from such and such a place, and you'd be welcomed with open arms.
Yep,
right?
you would.
It's quite superficial, but that was a safety net. That was a comfort thing.
Definitely.
When we leave that, many people end up either in a state of isolation where they don't have any friends and don't have any network, or they'll end up in a state of overwhelm where they're being totally swamped, or end up in an abusive relationship, or in kind of toxic work conditions or toxic friendships where it's very one-sided and they're giving a lot but not receiving a commensurate amount. So, and often people stay in those states for fear of going to the other side of the spectrum. So someone might be in a state of isolation, but they might keep the world at arm's length because they're afraid that they'll not be able to have effective boundaries, or they're afraid that they'll be abandoned again, which is in itself overwhelming. Or likewise, on the other hand, someone might stay in a state of overwhelm, like in an abusive relationship or just in a toxic social circle, because they're afraid of being alone. Like they've lost everyone else, their family, their friends, everyone in the organization, and just losing yet another person, even if that person's unhealthy for them. It's another loss. It's another straw on the camel's back, so to speak. And so that can keep people in a kind of gridlocked state, which sucks. And I've been on both sides of that equation in the past.
Yep.
I have two practical points on how we can address that. But you just took a breath. Were you about to ask?
I was going to say, with those scenarios that you were talking about, is that where we start looking at the why and not how can I get out, or what can I do?
It can be like why isn't a dirty question, right? We're allowed to ask it. It's more where you place your focus. In business, the general advice is spend 20% of your time looking at the problem and then 80% of your time looking at the solution, right?
Yep.
So sometimes reverse engineering why something has been the case is useful.
Okay.
So I don't want to say like that's off limits. It's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can give you understanding. The thing to be aware of is that if you ask that question of yourself, the person who's giving you the answer is you, and your perspective is contaminated with whatever crappy feeling you're currently experiencing.
Yeah. True.
There's a good rule of thumb, which is where you speak from, you speak to. So
Okay.
me as a hypnotherapist, right? If I was in an uptight, stressed state, it doesn't matter how perfect my words are. If I'm speaking to you and I'm in this like uptight, rigid kind of thing, you would feel what I'm feeling rather than following along with the words.
Yep.
Where you speak from, you speak to. That's why I keep myself in quite a relaxed, calm, and happy state, because when you're speaking to someone, especially in person, even through a screen or headphones, you're literally bathing their body, or at least their brain, in sound
Yeah.
waves. So,
Yep.
use your sound waves responsibly. Where you speak from, you speak to.
Yep.
That applies to other people, that applies to yourself. So
Okay.
just to be mindful of the fact that if I'm in a negative state and I've I've had a bad night's sleep and I've got kind of a sore shoulder and I've had something pop up that's been mentally triggering to me, then the place I'm speaking from is not my most wise, enlightened self. I'm speaking from the perspective of my kind of diminished, unresourceful state. So just to be mindful of that is important, and to not take it too literally, right?
Okay, cool. Well, let's go back to the 2 points you were practical suggestions you were going to talk about.
Yeah. So the two areas of overwhelm versus isolation, right? They're both
Okay. Yep.
challenges. And like I say, sometimes people stay in a state of isolation, either social isolation, obviously not for pandemic stuff, but in terms of not having friends, for fear of being overwhelmed. The thing that can help with that is having boundaries, and that's another whole topic of its own. I did record a podcast about that, which has been listened to hundreds of times. It's been really well received. So I won't go in depth about boundaries here because I've done it elsewhere. But for now, starting with yourself again is a great place to start. I'm not going to say decide what you don't want and then say no to the outside world straight away. If you're ready for that, then awesome, go for it. If you're not, though, don't force yourself to be stronger than you're ready to be in a given moment. That's like going to the gym and saying, well, I want to be able to bench press 100 kg. And so I'm going to just go and load that up and see what happens. It's unwise, right? So
Very.
those experiences too. So so start small and start simple with yourself. And what I mean by that is, like with the thoughts thing, do I accept or reject this thought? As that with behavior too. Do I accept or reject this behavior? I've just been saying something negative about myself, or I've been judgmental about that other person. Is that acceptable? Am I happy with that? No. Okay, well, let's stop that. Or as simple as, it's past 8 p.m. I had dinner earlier. I'm thinking about going to the fridge and getting a snack. Is that in my best interests? And asking yourself that question is a good... Depends on the snack.
Yes, right.
Asking yourself that question. If you're taking notes, definitely write this down. Asking the question, is this in my best interests?
Okay.
And then sit with it and answer the question, yes or no. to begin with, you don't even have to stop it, right? You can still go ahead and have the snack if you really want. Eventually, you will get sick of saying, no, this isn't in my best interests, and then going and doing it. You will hold yourself accountable.
Okay.
But this boundaries, right, is building the ability to set a boundary and to enforce it. If we can't respect our own boundaries, then it's unwise to expect other people to respect our boundaries, because we lead by example. So starting that boundary with us, discipline is following your own orders, and that's the place to start. So starting with yourself, saying you don't have to make a huge laundry list of, well, these are the things I will accept from myself and these are the things I won't. You can do that if you like, but I'm trying to keep this advice as bite-sized and as simple as possible, so you're not feeling burdened, so you actually feel a sense of optimism that you've got something simple that you can do. So just if you catch yourself in a moment doing, saying, or thinking something that doesn't serve you, ask yourself, is this in my best interests? And then if the answer is no, try stopping it. Try saying, well, let's pull the plug on that. And then as you build that muscle up with yourself, that builds a huge amount of confidence, because you are proving to yourself that you have control of you. That confidence subcommunicates a huge amount to the outside world. It also translates into confidence to say no to another person, because you know you can stop yourself from doing something. And so that you've earned the right, you've earned the authority to convincingly and compellingly say no. So that's on the point of boundaries. Another thing in terms of relationships is nurturing them. Friendships as well, like all kinds of relationships I'm talking about here. If we tend towards the isolation side of the equation, then what we need to do is learn how to nurture relationships. And there's a tip that I share with pretty much everyone I speak to, which is what I call the Litany of Love. And this is a simple 3-step exercise that you can do every day. It will not take you any longer than 60 seconds. It's not complicated, and it's not hard. How this works is you buddy up with someone. If you're in a relationship, that person is your ideal candidate to do it with, because you have to live with them. And if you're not in a relationship, friends is awesome. If you don't have friends, reach out to someone on this Facebook group and make some friends. Attend some of the group calls, make some friends, and buddy up with someone you care about. So you get your buddy to do this with. And what you're going to do is you're going to answer 3 questions. I like to recommend this every morning. So the first thing you do is share these 3 things. It's nice to do it in text. It's nice to do it in words as well. But let's say if one partner gets up early for work and doesn't want to wake the other one up, or friendships and you live separately, text is actually a really nice way of doing this, because it saves it immortalizes it. So the 3 questions that you answer, or the 3 statements you make, are: something I love about you.
So you're talking about yourself or the other person?
The other person, yeah. So you're messaging this other person saying, here's something I love about you. Here's something I love about today. And here's something I love about me. And then they reply and they answer those 3 things as well. So they tell you something they love about you, something they love about today, and something they love about themselves. What this does is it sets you up where the first act of your day is looking for something positive. So that in itself is really valuable. Also, what it's doing is it's getting you to say something positive about yourself. So you're adopting a positive lens about the outside world and people in it,
Yes.
and
Yep.
towards yourself, and you're verbalizing that, which creates that external proof, like we said earlier. It creates an external reference point rather than just another thought among millions.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as, something I love about you is the way that the way that you're always there for your friends. You're a really good friend.
Mm.
Something I love about today is that, I get the chance to speak with you, speak with Shane, and speak with whoever's listening and watching, and hopefully getting some value from it. I'm grateful for that. That's something I love about today so far. Something
Oh,
I love
that's
about,
great.
right? And so something I love about myself is that I've actually put the time in, and I've got the commitment and done the drills to get the skills to be able to share things that I feel are valuable. I'm speaking from some experience, and I've put things together, and I've put the effort in, and that's something I love about myself, something I respect about myself, that if I come to the table, I'm coming with something worth sharing. So it can
Absolutely.
be things like that, and at first it may be different because it's new. But
Yes.
there's no growth without awkwardness. So just
Yes.
give yourself permission to be awkward. Give yourself permission to do it in a clumsy way. And then soon enough, you'll be doing it like a pro. The other benefit of this is that's great just for you, right? Internally in your own
Yep.
mind space. That's a big lift in terms of building your relationships and nurturing them, nourishing them. Then you have this connection with another person where you're sharing positive thoughts. They're receiving positive feedback on themselves. Something I love about you is XYZ. They might not have noticed that about themselves, but now that you've
Okay.
brought
Yep.
it up,
Yep.
it's like, oh wow, yeah, I do that. Well, I am pretty good at that.
Yep.
You've highlighted something about them and made their day, made their self-esteem a little bit better.
Mm.
And likewise, you're getting that same gift yourself. So it's a very simple exercise. It doesn't have to take long, um, but that can really enhance and nourish your relationships. And so with those
Yep.
three areas of our thoughts, of our feelings, and then our relationships, when we can use even these simple tools, right? These are little snippets that I've kind of airlifted out of my the 12-week program. But even just those simple steps, if that's all you can manage, just do that and embrace it and own it. And then soon enough, your mental health and your ability
Mm.
to be in that driving seat of your own mind, and where your
Yeah.
emotions are an asset rather than a liability, that's going to turn around pretty quickly. If you only make a 1 degree shift a day, that's like 360 degrees 365 degrees by the end of the year. So
So you're saying we could turn our life around by doing a simple tool like that?
yeah, because it's in the progress is made in the incremental changes. Like
Yes.
I
Yep.
said, it's you don't just go to the gym once a month and then slaughter yourself and then make progress. That isn't how it goes. It's doing
No.
a little and often.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
steps regularly is what what will get you where you want to go. So that's why in this conversation I've tried to break things down into just the most
Yeah.
applicable, practical things that I want you, not you, Shane, but especially whoever's listening, to go away from this feeling and saying to yourself, I know what to do now. I have something that I can implement straight away. This is practical. This is useful.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that I want to invoke. So, like the entire journey of recovery can be long, and it is complicated,
Yeah.
but we don't need to worry about the entire journey right now. Like just get through this moment, get through this day, and then gradually your strength, your skills, your abilities will rise to greater and greater challenges, and you'll overcome them.
That's very practical,
Yeah.
very simple. So if you were to give, say, the Life After group a challenge, whether it be here in Life After Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitter, what would the challenge be for somebody who is by themselves and has nobody to send those things to another person, what they like about themselves, what they like about the person they're speaking to, and what they like about the day? What could that be?
Well, that could be is just writing it down just for yourself. That's
Okay.
fine. My invitation, though, if we're talking in terms of a challenge,
Yep.
my invitation would be make some friends, attend some of these meetup groups, interact with the different comment sections, go
Yep.
on the different forums, and just find people you vibe with. Even do this as a I might even put a short post together and
Please do.
invite people to connect with each other, and because some of us are alone, and that sucks. But this is
Yep.
this is too nice not to do. So I would say make some friends, at least one, and just buddy up on it, like like a workout buddy or a study buddy or something.
Yep.
Building these relationships, like I said, that need to be together with other human beings, that need for human connection
Mm.
is built into us. That's why religions popped up in the first place. People always say, oh, religion was made to control people. That's what it turned into. I doubt that's why it started, though. It started as the people in a tribal situation getting together and having a spiritual experience, and dancing and drumming and
Yep.
having
Yep.
telling stories about their cultural history and all this. Like, that's where it started, and it evolved and grew over time until it became this huge monolithic thing. That's what it became, and that got polluted, that got coerced and used against people for power. But I don't think that's where it started. It came from this human need to be together,
Right.
to feel that sense of connection with another person. That's really important. And so finding a way to fulfill that need is going to make a huge difference and give us a
Mm.
massive advantage in recovering from a toxic religion, because we're giving ourselves a healthy experience of human connection rather than the contorted version that we were given before.
Yep. So if you were to say, like we've been talking about mental health, and we could keep talking on different aspects of it, what would you liken mental health to? Is it much like oxygen, where we actually need oxygen to live? Do we need to have a decent sort of mental health to be able to be sort of happy?
I would liken it to physical health.
Okay.
Um, you you in most cases, and unless there's something like literally biologically wrong from birth, where there was a
Yep.
literal malformation in terms of the brain structure, it's something that you can change. In the same way that for most people, we can improve our physical health in some way too. We might not ever be Mr. Universe or Mrs. Universe or whatever, but we can certainly be the healthiest version of ourselves, or at least a healthier version of ourselves, right? So if the physical health is the external self, that's the meat part, we want that to be as good as possible. Then our mental health, which I would connect as the emotional health as well, that's our
Yep.
internal world. I always say the easier you make things on the inside of your mind, the easier things will become on the outside.
Hmm.
So, yeah, do you need it? Well, no, you can survive without it. You can live a life of misery. Plenty of people do. Plenty of people just go through life living the same old patterns, making the same old decisions day after day after day, feeling miserable,
Yeah.
driving themselves into this state where they get to the end of their lives and they look back and they think, "God, what a waste," or
Mm.
"How that was long." That's how a lot of people live. You and I, we've had a very rude awakening in terms of we were trundling along, most of us believing what we believed,
Yes.
thinking that was the truth, thinking we were doing the right thing, thinking we knew who we were and what we should be doing. And then we had the rug pulled from under us. And like I say, that rude awakening saying, hey, everything you thought was true is a lie. Now that's pretty overwhelming and that's pretty crushing, especially at first. But what that also does is that gives us a huge opportunity that so many people never get. Some people, they never get the gift of doubt. They just go along in complete certainty that this is how the world works. These are the good guys and the bad guys. This is how I should act, think, and speak. And that certainty becomes a prison until life comes crashing down around them. We've been given that gift of knowing, you know, maybe some of my beliefs are wrong, and maybe some of my crappy beliefs about myself are as wrong as my beliefs about the Bible were.
Okay.
Or God or Armageddon, right? So this awakening that we have, waking up, isn't just realizing that the religion was a crock of poo. It's it's an ongoing process of waking up to the different lies that we tell ourselves or buy into or get told, and waking up to, well, what's the actual truth? Not necessarily about the outside world, but at least about me. And that's an ongoing search. That's an ongoing journey and exploration that can be absolutely filled with joy. And so do you need to make that decision? Do you need to get back in the driving seat of your mind? Well, you don't have to. You don't need to do anything. All you need to do is breathe, eat, drink some water, and, you know, sleep and a few other things. That's it. But if you want to do more than that, then you do have a choice, and you can make that choice. And the things we've shared today are some like simple bite-sized steps that you can take to incrementally increase your personal sense of empowerment.
So just as we've started today's live stream with "We're not broken,"
Yeah.
what would you encourage people to do even after this? They still think they are broken.
I say rewind to the beginning and watch again. No. Do that
So
if you like.
Put it in a nutshell.
Do that if you like. If someone's still skeptical, then fine, right? That's
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
I'm some guy on the internet, you know. What I would say is try on the skills that we've spoken about today. So just try it on. You don't have to believe in it, but just suspend your disbelief for long enough to give yourself a chance to try it on. You know, try the thought experiments, try the feeling experiments, try the boundary thing with yourself, try the litany of love. Just try it. If you know, if you're in that place of doubt, you've literally got nothing to lose by trying
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
Like it's not going to make anything worse, is it? So just try the skills, and step by step, just keep yourself accountable, and then check in with yourself. Are you doing better than you were before or not? You don't have to. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I just really don't. Become it, and the way you become it is one step at a time. You don't teleport straight to a sense of confidence. Like, confidence without competence is a different kind of stupidity. It's not a solution.
Yep.
We want to build up competence. Sometimes we're able to, and we're sort of amiable to the idea of building up our confidence first, and then the competence catches up, or they build up like that. Sometimes the competence builds and our confidence stays in that kind of imposter syndrome mode until we realize, holy crap, I'm actually pretty good at this. There's no right or wrong way. It's you do what's right for you. So if you're still skeptical, if you're still doubting it, and you're still thinking, well, I am broken, that's fine. Just do the exercises and see how you get on.
Nice and simple. Well, I really want to say thank you for coming back on and giving us some further, more practical steps that we can take.
Thank you for having me. No, it's always
Yeah.
great to do these calls, and I'm very grateful. I'm sure everyone else watching is very grateful for what you do as well, Shane, organizing this and helping with the group and creating this space for people to share their stories, share experiences, share resources. It's you know, creating this space is a very big gift that you give to the community. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's a privilege to be able to do this. So, just in the way of finishing, tell us a little bit about rehab, religion rehab. I was going to say the other way around. How can we best contact you if people like what they've heard and would like to follow up on maybe a little bit more to help them? Give us some details on how we can contact you.
Yeah, if you're watching this on Facebook, just shoot me a message. Also, all the links to my website and everything, they're on my Facebook profile. So reach out to me on Facebook. Click my name, click the the message button, and type it. It's very very easy, and I'll reply as soon as I can. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, go ahead and look up religionrehab.co.uk. So it's an English website, so religionrehab.co.uk. The bunch of resources there, a bunch of free things. There's workbooks, there's a webinar, and I also have the Religion Rehab podcast, which is on all wherever you listen to your podcasts, iTunes or Spotify. It's all over there. So those are the places to find me.
Well, thank you very much for helping us to look at the subject we've been talking about today, mental health. It is important. You're not broken, like Jonam said. We are here to support. So if you need a friend to do that little exercise, to buddy up with somebody like Jonam suggested, reach out. We're here to help you. And you've found out the information on how to get hold of Jonam. Make use of the resources that are available, because they truly are there to help you, to help us, to help everyone be able to try and be at least a little bit reasonably happy.
At least.
At least. At the bare minimum. Anyway, thank you once again, Jonam. Thanks for everybody who's been on the live stream today and watching the chat about our mental health and some of the practical steps. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you again. And until then, keep safe, try to smile, and keep in mind you're not alone. We are here to help you. And we look forward to catching up again soon in one of our next live streams, which is going to be about an interesting girl, young woman, actually. Let's tune in then. Until then, thanks for being here, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.